All right, can everybody hear me now? All right, everybody, welcome to the latest installment of the Bruliam Wines Zoom virtual tastings. As you can see, today we're in the winery, which is very exciting. I'm going to project my voice, and I think there might even be a little bit of a cave effect. I'm going to remind everybody to please put yourselves into speaker mode so that you can see us best, and also to please put yourself on mute. We are very lucky today to be joined by Robert Morris, who is the boss of Grand Cru. He's the boss of all of the wine labels here. He is the spark of genius and inspiration behind the winery. He was trained in engineering. He's a STEM, math, science guy, and somehow he ended up babysitter and den dad to 20 different winemakers who are housed here at Grand Cru. So I will talk briefly about Custom Crush for a minute, and then I'm going to let Robert tell us a little bit about himself too. So yeah, so Custom Crush, it's a bit of a confusing model for people out there, and a lot of people always have questions. What does that mean? Do you have a winery? Do you share the winery? Who owns the winery? And the reason it's so confusing is because the definition is fluid. For those of you who've been with me for many years, you probably know that in the very early days, I made my wine at Morrison. And then I made my wine alongside my longtime mentor, James McPhail, at his winery. And there I was a Custom Crush client at their winery, which was not a Custom Crush facility, but the end product is the same in all of them. I get to make wine, which is great. But Grand Cru is incredibly special. Because of very unique attributes that make it an incredible place to be a winemaker. So without further ado, Robert, take it away and tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. So Robert Morris here. Yeah, as Kerith mentioned, I originally entered the career world as a mechanical engineer, graduated from UC Santa Barbara back in 1997. And wine was kind of like a hobby, you know, at that point of like just drinking and enjoying all these great wines. And it wasn't until we had purchased our first home way back in 2000 in Santa Rosa, and the neighbors across the street happened to be the original business partners in Copan Wines. And just by chance, one day we started to talk, and you know, they said, "Well, you have a lot of projects you work on, you know. What else are you going to do?" I'm like, "Well, this year I'm going to make wine." "Oh, no kidding. Well, we actually own a winery. You should come by and check it out sometime." And long story short, I left Hewlett-Packard and joined them full-time in 2004. I've designed several wineries over the years, grown my previous Custom Crush business from like about 600 tons of production all the way up to north of 1,600 tons. And then just kind of kept chipping away and decided that, you know, ultimately this is what we needed to build for the world of Custom Crush. There's a lot of different ways businesses can be structured and set up, but I knew that for the small boutique brands, just like Kerith's brand, that this is ultimately what they need. They need production and they need hospitality. So this will be, I think it's my 17th harvest. Maybe it's my 18th. I can't really remember. But anyways, it's been a long time, and here we are. And before we know it, about another, I don't know, hopefully 60 days or so, we'll be picking grapes, and we're on for another one. But yeah, so mechanical engineer, left that field and joined the wine business. I always say I'm a man of many hats. I do a lot of other things. We'll talk about some other details. I'm a firefighter for the city of Healdsburg. That's my nighttime job. My wife and I own a couple retail shops. We sell high-end dog collars and beds and everything. We actually own a business called Fido. So we're busy all the time.
So I think you touched on something really interesting talking about small brands. So here at Grand Cru, for those of you who've been here to visit me at the winery, you know when you walk in, there's a number of placards of all the different wineries who are lucky enough to make wine here. And it's a range. It includes really venerable old guard Sonoma brands like Laurel Glen.
Yeah, exactly.
Who've been around forever making beautiful Cabernet with their wonderful winemaker Randall. And it includes people who are newer to winemaking like the San Giacomo family.
Yep.
growing for 3 generations, but newer to winemaking. Why do you think all of these really wonderful boutique specialized brands have gravitated here to Grand Cru?
I think that, you know, number one, the production side of it is super important. There's a lot of different custom crush businesses that are out there, from places that focus on, like, say, a grower who has a couple of 1,000 tons of grapes that he just can't sell, and they want to make it into bulk wine and put it on the bulk market. Well, you know, there's a place for that. But there also needs to be a place for these really high-end boutique brands, and that's where Grand Cru comes in. Same thing with my previous business, where we focus on the small lot, the handcrafted, the maker's studio, you know, if you will. But the thing that actually differentiates Grand Cru from all of the other places that are out there, and it's one of the things that I really felt was missing from the world of Custom Crush, it's the hospitality side. It's one thing to be out there in the vineyard. It's one thing to work with your growers, to call the pick on the right day, to come in here and to work ungodly hours during harvest and everything else. But the real trick is selling the wine.
That's the truth.
Funny, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you got to get amazing grapes. You got to have great growers. You got to have all these relationships. You have to have an impeccably clean facility in order to, and a well-organized facility too. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, you know, like I always love playing the game Tetris, you know, you're moving the stuff around. Well, that's what this place is. It's like during harvest. It's Tetris, you know, what's going to go where, what's going to go into what tank. But at the end of the day, we have to have a place that's hospitable for people to come in, sit down, relax, listen to Kerith tell her story, taste through the wines, and, you know, ultimately make that connection with people. And nobody was doing that in the world of Custom Crush. So I kind of had this vision. I've had it for a long, long time. I tried really hard to do it with my last business partners, and that didn't work out. So
he built his own.
Yeah, totally. I said, well, then I'll just do my own. and yeah, so then we built this place. So.
Yep. Well, what I forgot to do is speaking of hospitality, what I forgot to do is to remind everybody to raise a glass. So raise a glass. Hopefully everybody has some wine with me. So let's just, to everybody's continued good health. And thank you for joining me here today. So cheers to that as a little interlude. Cheers.
Definitely.
Cheers. So Robert's definition of having a custom crush that's proprietary because it includes hospitality is spot on. When people visit me here, I describe Grand Cru as a giant rectangle where the front 10%, sort of like the storefront, is dedicated to hospitality. Can you sort of talk about sort of just broadly the general design, and then we're going to get into some deeper details?
Yeah, so the winery, we knew that the hospitality part had to be there. We wanted to, you know, when you build a building anywhere, especially in California, you know, square footage is very expensive. So the core design ultimately starts with production. We need to know how much tonnage we're going to put through here. That tonnage turns into tanks, turns into barrel counts, turns into floor space, turns into workable areas. You know, knowing what works, the distance from, you know, this tank behind me to the tank across from me, how many rows of barrels, how the forklift moves, all of that stuff. Those are kind of the golden rules, and they shall not be broken. So that's what ultimately laid the facility out. Like I said, I've designed several wineries. I've worked in plenty others. And my last place, we always made the joke, it was the Winchester Mystery House of wineries. You went down the ramp and through the blue door, and then up through the red door, and then around the corner, and watch out for the sprinkler head. And but in, you know, that facility, we made 80,000 cases a year of just amazing wines. But it was not easy. And so when we designed this place, you know, we said, look, we got to get the nuts and bolts of production right, because we have to be able. That's job number one. We got to get that done. Then what do we do with hospitality? You know, we want to be able to create individual private rooms. The concept, the old days of having like a bar that's like 50 feet long and people are shoulder to shoulder and everyone's having a great time, that doesn't work when you're trying to have like an actual experience in, you know, kind of connect with your clients. That works if you just want to have a good loud time and drink a lot of wine, but but that's not the clientele that we're focused on here. So individual tasting suites, how do we design those? How do we outfit them? What's the furniture? How quickly can we turn one around? Because it could be, Kerith's for 2 hours, and then it's the San Giacomo's for the next 2 hours, and then it's, so on, and just keeping through that whole process. Plus all of the other little intricate details that need to support hospitality, offices, kitchenettes, bathrooms, and basically we just creatively worked with our architect and laid all that stuff out, and made a really inviting place for people to come. And some of the tricks with the room are pretty awesome, in how it can be instantly branded to an individual winery, and then when they're done, they just kind of grab their stuff and leave, and the TV turns off, and it's ready for the next person. So
that's true. Now, I'm going to go back to something you said about the golden rule of the winery.
Yeah.
I thought the golden rule was winemakers aren't allowed to touch the temperature control pad during harvest.
That's golden rule 1.2. Yeah, don't touch the temperature.
Don't touch the temperature control pad without asking.
Just tell
Robert
us what you
will
want.
Do it.
So, yeah, there's little things like that. But one of the big things about the design, though, of the production area, a lot of what went into this place is, I call it the problem solver. I solved problems that I have had for years and years and years in my previous facilities with a lot of the design of this place. And we'll get through a couple of your other questions that you have. But yeah, the way it unfolded, it really was kind of exciting. So
I remember sitting with Robert before they even broke ground, and we were at a Starbucks in Windsor, California, a couple miles from the winery. And Robert has this twinkle in his eye, and he's so excited trying to explain this concept to me. So it's clear that he had this vision in his head of what this could be for a long time. And I guess what I'm wondering is, what was the spark for the inspiration? And let's start to segue into sort of this dual idea of form and functionality, of aesthetic and architecture, because I know that's really important to you in the way this presents aesthetically. And there's a list of 100 little details that make even the inside of this winery beautiful as well as functional.
Yeah, the real driving factor was to just have, this is a crazy business that we're all in, and we need to figure out how to do it well, and really enjoy ourselves while we do it, because I mean, it's tough, there's times when it's easy, but there's a lot of times when it's not. And what we want to be able to do is to, they always say, like, whatever you're going to do, go enjoy your job, right? Like, then you're not working. And so I had to work really, really hard in my last facility, like really hard. It put a lot of gray hairs on this head, but and I didn't want to work like that anymore, but I really wanted to stay in this business. So that kind of started to lead down the path. But the big thing for this facility was the introduction of the hospitality. I had watched countless people come to my last facility, which, like I said, we made 80,000 cases there. The wines were fantastic. It was a dark, cold warehouse in Santa Rosa. It had stainless steel tanks, it had forklifts, it had all that stuff, but it wasn't warm and fuzzy. And you would watch people come by to taste with clients, and they'd be frozen. Like they would last 15, 20 minutes, and that's it. Then they wanted to go get lunch, and they said, "Oh, thanks, this is really cool." And I'm like, man, there's got to be a better way, because once you start to get in, and I'm not going to bore everyone with the details of how wine is sold out there in the marketplace and how it trades hands, but boy, if you can't, like, if the capturing that direct-to-consumer sale is a big thing, and if you don't have a place for people to do it, it really makes these brands struggle. So there's got to be a better way, and so that's really the driving force behind this place. And then a lot of the other stuff, like I said, it's all about solving problems. It was also all about kind of some hard rules of, harvest is always the same amount of time. People say, well, it's an early year. Well, it's a late year. Sure, whatever. It always starts the last week of August, and it always ends on Halloween. I mean, that's it. that's the only thing that I do during that time of the year, unless the county catches on fire, then I'm driving a fire engine around. But that's it. So if that's it, and we have all this work to do, well, let's right size our plate. Let's figure out what we can do and do it really well. Let's focus on that. So that set the production level for the place. That set the amount of tonnage we can process in a day without losing our minds. You know, like I love this place, but I'm not going to stay here all night. I mean, that's not it. I gotta
even if we provide pizza.
Yeah, totally. I usually never will eat dinner in the winery. I get done and I go home. But yeah, it's, you know, it's all about work-life balance. We have families. I mean, you think about this. You know, Kerith, you have 3 amazing kids. You got an awesome husband. He's busy. You're busy. I have a wife. I have a kid. Everyone. It's all families. I mean,
that's true.
We have to balance everything out. And if we're here until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, then we're doing it wrong.
Okay, so speaking of families, I didn't even put this in our notes. Can you briefly talk about the little secret nook that you outfitted for Max and that some of the kids still like to play in? Because that's on the hospitality side.
Yeah.
Technically on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, it was it ended up that we have this big staircase that goes from the bottom floor up to the top where there's a couple more conference rooms and stuff. And it was going to be this massive welded steel structure. And I'm like, oh, I'll build that. And then I'm like, I don't think I have time. And then we got a price bid on it. And it was just ridiculous. So the contractor and I worked it out. And we're like, hey, well, we'll just redesign this really quick and we'll build it. Well, when it got done, it made this perfect, like, fort, you know, underneath, you know, which it's a closet. But, you know, my son showed up and right away he's like, he looks in there. His dad, what's this? I'm like, I don't know, but it's, you know, storage area. We're going to put a door on it. He goes, well, it's my fort. So right away, mom had to go get rugs and pillows and decorations, and we put Legos in there and everything else. And yeah, so he and my business partner's daughter, they hung out in there a bunch, and then all the other kids kind of piled in over time. And I think that Art and Nicole's daughters will probably use it the most still. But yeah. So the hidden fort within Grand Cru. So
all of the kids jumped in there. So yeah, it's a family operation, and it's all nice families. So I mean, we're lucky for that, right?
Yeah,
like all the clients are nice people. So let's talk a little bit about form and function and aesthetics, and let's even start with the facade of Grand Cru. Your fascination with fonts.
Oh yeah.
I know that the font of Grand Cru is important to you. All of us having bins that look the same. Let's talk about your aesthetic, about the bar tops that you made yourself in your workshop. How does all of that vision come together? You're incredibly hands-on with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, secretly, I think I am an architect in the background. I've always been focused on that. My dad was a general contractor. You know, my grandfather was a general contractor. They built beautiful homes. I learned how to do drawing and design at an early age, and I'm always about building something. I mean, the one thing I never really talk about is my hobby. I build miniature steam trains that people actually ride on. So people are like, what? You do what? I'm like, yeah, well, you know, I stay busy. But I'm all about just industrial design, mechanical design. Like I said, trained as an engineer. I worked in all different facets at Hewlett-Packard, but the place I gravitated to was, I'm a designer. I mean, you know, I was given massive tasks, and I sat down and cranked out these designs, and when I can't figure something out, I'll go to the shop and I'll build it myself. You know, they would always say, hey, you know, there's an account. You can just put it on an account, and the guys down there in the shop will build it. I'm like, nah, I'll do it myself. So that way I understand how everything fits together. You know, it's kind of like, I think it's kind of a critical thing for being a good designer and being a good engineer is you kind of have to know how it all works. So another thing, when you go and design something new, like this winery, yes, you have all the critical stuff of it's going to do this amount of tonnage. It's going to, you know, so those are all big things to figure out. But then if you're going to do it right, you know, like, it really adds no cost. It's just, you have to be creative in how you put everything together. Like just your eye, like what looks right. You know, I'm some people, to my fault, you know, they're like, oh, everything's really symmetrical. Well, yeah, because that's how I am, man. I'm a Virgo, you know, I'm like, right. Everything is unaligned. I personally actually hand set every tank. There's 66 tanks in this winery, and I put everyone in place with a pallet jack and a couple of boards. And I mean, you can set your watch by them. Yeah. But when you do that, when you take that attention to detail from whether it's the tank or the bar or whatever, it all shines through, right? So as a client here, you know, not only you like I said, back to the vineyards, right? We've got these great sources. We work with all these great growers. Those grapes get picked and they come here. Well, now they just toss the ball into a new court. Yep. Now we've got to do it right. You know, we're going to do it right because we have all the cool bells and whistles. We know what we're doing. We're here to help. But let's do it in a place that looks good. You as a client, as a customer coming to visit with Kerith, you know, and getting to see, like, you walk out into this stainless steel jungle and you're like, oh my God, this is where the wines are made? It's like, yeah, because it's easy. This is how you can do it, you know. You can also really screw one of these places up and make it a mess, but, you know, hey, to each their own. But for me, it's got to look good. Everything has to not only have form. A function's critical, but it's got to have form. And if it doesn't, then take a, you know, sleep on it. I solve almost all of my problems between 2:30 and 4:30 in the morning, or when I'm like in the shower, where I'm like, oh, I got it. You know, come in, make notes, everything else, and really just always drive towards perfection. And you know, does it make the wines better? I mean, you know, but it just feels good. It's a good place to work.
Right, so, and if you don't have to struggle, then you can focus on making the best wine, right? Like we've all been in wineries where, I mean, it looks cool that the tanks are symmetrical, but we've all worked in wineries where two of the tanks are too close together. So if you need to like switch from the glycol to the hot water, you can't fit back there.
No.
And then there's like gaping space between the other two, and that's where everyone stuffs all the crap. It's kind of like the junk drawer, so you can never find anything back there.
Exactly.
You know, stuff gets stuffed back there. So if you don't have to worry about that stuff, if you know we can fit a pump around all of this, there's electrical outlets, there's hot water, there's cold water everywhere it needs to be, then we can focus on making the best wine.
Totally. That's the water outlets that's a hilarious thing because I forget that I think there's 23 of them in here. And the plumbing contractor was like, hey man, you know, like usually we put like 6 in. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's in a really poorly designed winery. Yep. And they're like, well, explain to me. And so you start to say, well, like, what if something's happening on the left and we got to do something on the right? Like you cross the hose, you drive over with the forklift, you break the hose, it sprays the water. Think about it, man. It's all critical stuff. You know, does the bottling truck only go to the door on the right? No, sometimes it needs to go to the one on the left. Well, that's another water station out there. You know, it's all these little things. And if you do that from the beginning, it just makes life so much easier. To come back after the fact and have to put it back in retrofit, that gets expensive. And nobody really likes to backpedal and change their designs later on. I mean, you got to try and nail it out of the gate. I've been to countless wineries where I'll walk in there and be like, man, this place is really cool. How the hell do you get grapes in that tank? Oh, well, that one's different. That's different. Yeah, we don't use it that much.
Right.
Well, okay, that's a $15,000 tank and you don't use it that much? You know, I mean, come on. So yeah, it's hilarious what you see out there. But you know.
So you've been extraordinary forecasting everything we need to make great wine. Mm-hmm. That said, Grand Cru opened in 2017. So you've been through a number of challenges in 2017, 2019, and now here we are in 2020. Talk a little bit about all of the things you weren't able, none of us could foresee, and how it has been to shepherd 20 anxious winemakers through these times, because all of us have our own neuroses, our own anxieties, our own personalities, our own ways we like to make things. And now you have all of these, as I said, you're like the den dad. You have all of these kids, and suddenly there's things that you can't foresee.
Yeah, it's, I think the biggest, first of all, we put a lot of time and effort into kind of interviewing and talking with clients ahead of time. So we actually have a really, I mean, everyone here is amazing. You're great to work with. But we always remind people like, hey, you know, we all have to play in the sandbox, you know, so that's kind of the whole deal. The big thing that makes this facility easier though is the workload that's here. If it was 2 times this volume, then the den dad has a lot harder time controlling everything. And so all back to those numbers. Like, what are we going to do here? What's reasonable? How are we going to get through the day and get this done? Unforeseen challenges.
You can say it. You can say the word.
Yeah, the fires, the PG&E with their, that's so funny you made mention of the I Got the Power video. I had so much fun making that.
That was my favorite
yeah,
moment.
but the, yeah, so the fires, that's obviously a big thing, right? It's a big thing for us. It's a big thing for everyone in Sonoma and Napa County, and then of course all over the place where that's happening. Yeah, wow, didn't see that one coming. Nobody really did, right? Now we see it a lot clearer. We went through it again in 2019. Yeah. You know, what it does though is it presents a problem that you just have to figure out how to solve it. You know, who's going to come, how are we going to cover the winery? How are we, you know, what staff is going to hang back? How are we going to, like this last year was amazing. We sneaking people in by meeting the mayor of the town in a vineyard out there and jumping into his car to get past the roadblocks. And where there's a will, there's a way. We figure it out. But the, you know, you can't just sit there and say, well, I don't know, because that's really never the answer. There's always a way to solve things. You know, if it's on fire, we'll put it out.
Figuratively and literally, I
think. Exactly. So, but huge challenges. The power shutdown by PG&E, that's a really big challenge. And I got to tell you that, you know, we didn't really share a whole bunch of information about that, but the cost for that was astronomical. Those are things we don't budget for, you know. But funny thing about that in Custom Crush versus your own standalone winery, you know, things like that, we may have a little bit more of an ability to kind of absorb a hit like that, but if it was your own standalone place, it could bury you.
Yes. You
know, and a lot of places that I know of, I'm like, hey, I call them up. I'm like, hey, I kind of got an inside track because I've got liaisons with PG&E. I'm in the fire department. We've been well debriefed on what's coming down the pipeline. What are you guys going to do for a power generator? I don't know, man. We're just going to wing it. Okay, well, and they went like a week without power. Well, when there's no power here, things are a lot different. You know, these we literally had one client. We had, I want to say we had 42 tons of estate-grown Pinot Noir from Anderson Valley. Amazing, amazing wines that had all just gotten through their cold soak period. They were all just inoculated. They were all ready to take off. And had we not had the power to keep the glycol cold, those tanks would have surpassed 100 degrees. We would have lost all of it. It would have tasted horrible, and it would have wiped an entire vintage out of that brand's wine. I mean, that's crazy. That can't happen, you know? So yeah, and you know, the 2017 thing, it still blows my mind. I mean, thankfully it came at the end of harvest. I mean, all the grapes were in the door. Same basic thing happened in 2019. There was one couple straggling little vineyards out there for this facility. The county in general, Napa County in general, a lot of fruit did hang out there. I saw, especially this last in 2019, I spent so much time driving around in Alexander Valley on structure protection and putting out fires, and the vines were just loaded full of grapes, and I'm like, oh my God, these poor people. But here we were good. Everything was basically in the door. We just had to stay, on top of it and stay working and taking care of the wines. Like I said though, 2017 still blows my mind. I mean, what transpired that year on top of, you know, us building this place in what has got to be the Guinness Book of World Records to build a winery. We went from a dirt lot on March 28th to a functioning winery on August 26th.
And it was literally like, I think the first day Ernest was getting fruit. Like the first tank was hooked up. You guys got your permit. Like as the grapes showed up in the parking lot.
Exactly. So,
you know,
so that was fun.
And being, you know, and in 2017, being mostly Pinot and early ripening vineyards, you know, 98% of the clients here were done by the time the fires came through. But it allowed Grand Cru to be a good community citizen. Can you talk a little bit what happened? Even though my wines were done and all the other wines were done, we still had all these tanks. So talk a little bit about what you did. Don't be humble.
Yeah, no, so we had other wineries that were still, you know, that fire made its move. It came this direction first. That's a lot of the destruction and everything that everyone sees, but it kind of moved quick. The fire continued. We had the Nuns Canyon fire. It kind of migrated another direction within Sonoma County, and it really made a major impact on several other facilities one of which also a newer custom crush facility. I just said, hey, you know, they called me up and they're like, I don't know what we're going to do. They won't even let us in there, you know, and we have grapes that are ready to pick. And I'm like, dude, just send them here. You know, we'll take care of it. And he's like, oh, are you going to charge me double? I'm like, no, not at all. Just get them here. Like, we'll do it. We'll take care of it. I'll give you a login to our system. You guys, you can put your work orders in. We're here to help you out. I mean, we have to come together as a community to do this. And we got into the same situation again this last year. Luckily, everyone was able to still function and get into their facilities. But yeah, our friends over in Sonoma Valley, it was like Fort Knox. They wouldn't let them in at all. Yep. And so we took care of it here. We processed for 2 other clients, and the wines came out great. And you know, the show goes on. But yeah, I mean, that's just what you have to do. Again, you can't shrug your shoulders. You just have to figure out, like, all right, well, how are we going to solve this? You know, let's do it.
Yep. So one thing that always stuck with me, Robert, is you said, you winemakers are so predictable. I know exactly how many days each of you different Pinot people are. And you showed me this spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And it was like a cartoon. It was like a clown car of spreadsheets. So, you know, you have a clown car and you think like 5 clowns are going to come out, and then there's like 27 and they just keep coming. That was Robert's Excel sheet. Like, it goes on and on and on. And it was like, if you can imagine like an accordion, if you printed it out, all the way to the ground and behind. Can you talk a little bit how you manage all of us winemakers? And I mean, I have 4 Pinots, Chardonnay, Zinfandel, Rosé in different fermentations. I did the late harvest, and I'm not the only one with multiple SKUs.
Yeah.
And there's people with more SKUs than me.
Yeah, it's really, so you look at the capacity of the winery, you look at what you can do in your tanks. Our tanks, luckily, you know, when I first entered this business, and this tank behind us we call it a 3-ton tank. And I thought, well, that's it. It's got to have 3 tons in it. No, not really. It can actually have 1.5 tons. It can have 2, 2.25, you know, it can't be over 3.1. So you figure all these little things out. Then we did a lot of work, not to get sidetracked, but we did a lot of work with the tank design and the glycol jacketing and the temperature control. So they're very, very versatile. And so then we just kind of go back, and it's all about math. It's all about the numbers. How much Pinot, how much Cabernet, how much Chardonnay is a little different because it uses a different part of the winery, not so much in here. But you have to go back and look at what you can get done in a given amount of time. I really learned how to push a facility to its limits in my last place. And you know, pushed me to my limits. but I know what I can really do in a winery, and then I know what I want to do. And this is what I want to do, where I have to really fill these tanks. I have to fill them twice. I can easily fill them 4 times, but and really it's that whole thing, time and tank, right? So I sit there and I have general rules of thumb of what Pinot producers do, what Cab producers do, so on and so forth. And then as you start to know the individual clients, then you can pretty much set your watch by it. Like, you're like, okay, well, cool. You actually, you say you're going to be there for 16 days, but you're really a 12-day person, maybe even a 10. And so the spreadsheet is really all about tank asset management, right? So we'll go in there and we'll say, okay, Kerith has 3 tons of Pinot. It's in, you know, vat 27, and it went in on this day, and then we block out the amount of time. Well, that just tells me I can't fill that tank. You'd say, well, that's easy. There's grapes in it. You can't fill it. Well, exactly. But when there's 66 of them and the fruit's coming and everything else, you have to be able to say, like, harvest can have these waves, right? Where like you get a weird heat spike and then everything's ready to come, and you have to be able to kind of navigate those spikes, because another one of those things of like, hey, I've got 3 more tons of Pinot to pick today. What are we going to do? You can't be like, I don't know. You know, that's not the answer. The answer is, yeah, we got that. We're going to drop this tank tomorrow night, and you know, it's all going to work out. Or we're going to have to crush this way, and then we're going to switch things out. It's all going to work. Or hey, you want to split that up? Those are, as a custom crush guy, those are the things. That's my job. I have to figure all that stuff out, and I have to manage it such that we can get through this. Everything has a home. Everything has a place. Nobody really gets rushed. You know, that's another thing. If you really were a person who had to be in tank for 21 days and I came after 12 and I'm like, hey, get out. You know, that doesn't work. That's not the wine you're trying to make, right? So we really, back to the interviewing of clients in the beginning, like, what's your program like? You know, who did you work with before? Where's your vineyard sources? What, you know, can we taste some of your wine? Can we look at your wines? You know, all the stuff, and you really get a feel for who these people are and how they operate. And then you have to have a mix of them within the facility. It's like, we can't all do Pinot Noir here, right?
Right.
I mean, we could, we just wouldn't do as much tonnage, but we have to have a mix. And we see almost every varietal under the sun, from Sauvignon Blanc to Pinot to all the crazy stuff Joe gets, the Barbera and the whatever, you know, with a bucket putting into the egg. And so we have it all. And but that's how you build this community, and that's how you make a plan that you can actually work within. And then, yeah, I sit up there in my office and I look at my spreadsheet and I'm like, yeah, we're doing okay, or we're getting a little tight. So, but I always know, and my production manager too, I've been teaching, you know, I showed him it the first time. He's like, God damn, what is that? You know, and I'm like, well, dude, this is how we do this, you know, and he's up to speed now. He can make the crazy spreadsheet himself. So.
Can he really?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh, see, I just don't like Excel. Brian's the Excel guy in this relationship, so I don't like looking at Excel. Oh, okay, we're okay on time. Good, because I have a few more questions for you.
Yeah.
So during harvest, you oversee a lot, and obviously you're here every single day. And then in times in the spring, during élevage, you're here less often. Obviously, you have your fire department hat. Talk a little bit about how you've been able to put, not rules, sort of stopgaps in place so that you can step away and do the other things you like, and recruiting the right people to support all the winemakers.
Yeah, it's
really, not easy.
No, it really comes down to the staff that we have in place. My production manager, he's amazing. I actually really wanted to hire him back when we built this place, but he was tied up in a really fancy job over in Napa area. And I couldn't get him, but I finally did. I finally grabbed onto him. But I've got Luke, and then I have 4 amazing guys that work underneath of him. And I really, and then of course with hospitality, I have Nicole. Nicole's amazing. She oversees all of that. I really try to not get involved in hospitality because it's not really my, I mean, I'll build the tables and the bars, but that's not my gig up there. But critical people in critical places such that I can kind of step away. I really need, I remember back when in the days of Punchdown where I once told my business partner, I'm like, you know, man, I just need more time to think. Yeah. That's all I need. I just need to sit here and think. If I had to come in and orchestrate the work orders every day, you know, 365 days a year, and I don't know. I did it. I did it for a long time, but I quickly realized that, you know, hey, it's better. My wife's so funny. She's like, you know, you need to learn how to delegate. And I'm like, but I don't delegate. And I'm actually getting really good at delegating these days. And you know, I figured about 5 years ago, I started to really learn that. So I'll be 45 in August. So I think I'm finally getting there. But yeah, you have to have a great crew. You got to make sure that they're taken care of, that they have what they need, that it's a fun place for them to work, and that I put a lot of trust in people, and when I have the right person there, I know I can trust them to the end of time, and then it really frees up, you know, my time to think, my time to be associated with the fire department, which that's a big thing for me. I mean, you know, I live 4 blocks from the fire station. That's my community. At home, I'm known as Firefighter Morris, not the guy who owns the winery down in Windsor. You know, so that's a big thing to me, and I need to make. And then, you know, family time. You know, family's key. So got to have that balance.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I guess we're getting close to that 45-minute mark, and I want to make sure we have time for questions. So we'll do this as a rapid fire round. We'll do 3 questions from me before we do questions from the audience. How about what are the top 3 things that are still really fun about this job?
The top 3 things. So number 1, I'm a little biased, but working in this facility because it's so much easier than anything I've ever done in the past. So that's awesome. The creativity, you know, having clients pick up grape sources from the exact same vineyard and make completely different wines. That's a fascinating thing. I never will forget, like, when I first tasted, it was a Copan wine, and it was a 2002 Pinot Noir from Anderson Valley, and it was my very first barrel tasting I ever had. And I remember like sitting there and I'm like checking it out, and I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me! Wine can taste like this?" And they're like, "Yeah, dude, this is you're missing out on things." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" But we get to do that every single year, and it's always different, right? It's a little hotter, it's a little cooler, it's 3 days earlier. Oh my God, it fermented really fast, or wow, this has taken a long time. I tried out a new barrel, whatever it may be. That's really cool stuff. And then the third thing, I'll tell you again, it's back to this facility, but to be here on a Saturday when it's really busy, I mean, of course, right now we're in this COVID thing and we're working it out, but when this place is full of clients, much folks like you visiting, clinking glasses, laughing, having a great time, we won. That's it. We got it.
Yep.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. Thank you. All right, I am sure we have a ton of questions. So I'm going to stop talking so that Brian can come over and field some questions for us.
Okay, let's see. I'm trying to rephrase this question a little bit, but who ultimately makes the decisions? Who's in control of every tank, of every wine that's being done? What is that division of labor?
So is that in terms of physical labor, or who decides what's happening with the wine?
I think they want to better understand both of those things.
Okay, so I can take that one and then you can follow me up.
Totally.
So everything that happens on my wine, I'm here for, other than during COVID when I wasn't here physically in the winery when the guys were topping for a few weeks. I make all the decisions on what happens to my wine from the minute I pick it to the time that it shows up here. Do I want to destem it? Do I not want to destem it? Do I want it to be, what temperature do I want on Robert to set the jacket to if I'm doing a cold? Don't touch the temperature. What day do I want to inoculate it? Do I want to start to warm it up? All of those decisions come from me. During harvest, we have additional harvest interns who come in and do work orders, and it just varies. I like to inoculate all my own tanks myself. I like to cook. I like to mix up yeast. I like to, if there's an addition, I like to do it. I like to know I'm doing the math. I'm weighing everything out. That's what I like to do. But there's other winemakers who just type in an order and say, take this amount of yeast with this amount of water at this temperature and put it in the tank. And then some of the interns would take care of that.
Yeah. And that's actually a big differentiator for this facility versus others. More and more folks have drifted this way a little bit, but a lot of custom crush facilities, Kerith would never be allowed to be in the cellar. They say, no, you can put your work order in and we'll take care of it. Our staff will execute all the plans. That's not how the wines are made here. It would be a huge disservice to the brand, to the wines, to the grapes, everything. We want to see Kerith. We want to see her every day. We want to interact. We want to talk about what the kids are doing. How was swim practice? Like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, yeah, you're going to do that today? Oh, you need to barrel that down tomorrow? Yeah, cool. Get a work order and we'll take care of that. But yeah, winemakers call all the shots. We orchestrate what tank it's going to go into, and we orchestrate like time of pressing. Kerith will say, can we drop this tomorrow morning? And we'll say, hey, we're kind of busy. Can we do it in the afternoon? Sure, no problem. I got to go pick up, Bruno's got it this, whatever. Yeah. And so we all work it out. But yeah, winemakers definitely put in all their own work orders, do their, and if they want to do their own work. I mean, hell, you've shoveled your own tanks before. I shovel
tanks.
It's awesome.
I tried to get free jeans. Like one of the days that I was shoveling tanks, I posted it on Instagram and noted the company thinking, wow, maybe they'll send me free pants.
Yeah, this is branded.
I know, branded. Note, they did not send me free pants.
Damn it. So, classic.
What are some of the biggest challenges when you have those really busy days and there are things coming at you all the same time? How do you organize that?
Well, one of my clients calls it. I said, "What are you doing today, Jeff?" "I'm playing whack-a-mole." And it is like that a little bit. We really we don't take a lot of surprises here, so we know it's going to be a busy day. I could tell you that 3 days from now, if we were in harvest, right? Like I'd be like, oh yeah, well, here comes the heat, here comes the picks. Pretty soon, by Friday, we're gonna be kind of slammed. Well, we just adjust our position of staffing. We get everything ready the night before. That's a huge, luck favors the prepared. So we get everything we can possibly get ready the night before, whether it's pulling out barrels, getting them steamed, getting tanks ready, getting them ready, because on the day of, I mean, you'd be amazed at what we can go through in one day. And it, luckily I've got some time with this and I've figured it out. It actually makes it pretty easy. And then you just love those days when you're not that busy, we designed the place to do like basically 25 tons a day as an average, and a 15 to 25 ton day here is a dream. The most we've ever done is 49, and we knocked it out because we have the equipment and we have the people, but we don't like to really stay that busy all the time. Right. So it's all about planning.
Yep.
I know in years past you've had harvest interns that have come from all over the world. COVID and political issues. Are you guys concerned about staffing for this harvest?
Oh yeah, staffing has been very well. So really good question. Last year, or I'd say the last 2 years, with the unemployment rate going down so low, you'd have people and they're like, "Well, I'd love to come work harvest. You'll pay me like $40 an hour, right?" And I'm like, no, you're coming here to learn how to make wine and have a lot of fun and camaraderie. You're going to get paid $15 an hour or whatever. So we were trending into a point where we were having a hard time even finding people to come work, and just really, really crazy. Now this year, there's plenty of people without jobs, but are they going to be able to come here and work? Luckily, but not luckily, our tonnage projections for this year will be down considerably, which means our labor will be down considerably. And I think we have what we need covered. I did hear, I think yesterday, that like the H-1B program is being postponed, and we pull people in on J-1s. So it's like an educational visa, which we should still be fine on. I think we have one international this year, the rest are local. So. But yeah, labor is always a challenge. That's why we actually added a fourth cellar guy, so that we call him the floater. He's here and can really, in harvest time, a permanent staff cellar person can run circles around interns. Interns are rad. Sometimes they're horrible, but other times we just love them. And my favorite is the intern who's very young, who's never worked in a winery, because they're completely moldable and you can train them the way that you want them to work. The worst intern is the guy who has like a million years of experience and says, "I think you should pay me more because I'm really good." That's the one that you send out the door. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because they're not that good.
Yeah.
But labor is always a challenge. It's always expensive and it's always hard to secure good ones, but we've done a really good job of it here.
Yep.
So.
Any thoughts or concerns over how COVID's going to impact the actual harvest process and the winemaking process as well?
Well, I assume we're just going to have fewer people on the sorting tables.
Yep.
We will not be elbow to elbow. We're going to be apart like Robert and I are now, and we'll be sorting with masks,
Yeah, it's really hard to say. It seems like the story on our personal protective gear seems to change by the day, and mask, no mask, then we need a mask, and now we have a resurgence of, I don't know. It's a moving target. There's going to be less people here. It's a big place. We've got a lot of space, thankfully, because we designed it right.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
But it's going to be a slower pace this year. I mean, like I said, we normally do 600 to 650 tons. Last year we did 631. I bet we don't break 450 this year.
Yeah.
So not so good for the bank account, but we'll have plenty of social distancing within the cellar.
Yeah.
So.
That's true.
And then last question is, I guess, more for you, Kerith. Questions about how the different winemakers interact and how you guys help each other out and learn from each other.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the most lovely things about being here. When people ask me,
they're asking for you to repeat the question.
Okay. So the question was, how do all of the different winemakers interact? And so I'll just say that I'm really lucky to be here. I joke, but it's true that the rule to be here is don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole. Clean up after yourself. Throw away your trash. If you're loading cases into the, case area, take out your garbage, take out the recycling. Don't leave a tuna fish sandwich in the refrigerator. And I think we've been lucky that the winemakers here are incredibly gracious of time. You know, a lot of us source from similar vineyards or the same vineyards. So sometimes we'll go out and we'll sample everybody's block. I've done that before, and other winemakers have done that for me. Jeff Gaffner, who makes Black Kite, I pepper him with questions all the time, and I have for years.
Yep.
And he's incredibly generous with his knowledge. I don't make Cab, but Randall, who makes Laurel Glen, is one of the most lovely guys. And he would, you know, help you with any problem. And often I'll turn to Ashley, I'll turn to Joe, and I'll say, oh, does this tank smell reduced? And they're like, no, it's fine, you're just being neurotic. Or, you know, why don't you consider like a pump over in the afternoon? I think that'll blow that off. And sometimes you just need other people's noses and palates to confirm your conviction of what you know.
Yeah, totally.
But just sort of the collective brain.
Yeah, and you know, like I said, with this being whatever it is, 17 or 18 harvests for me, you know, I've worked with so many different winemakers over the years, and that's I always tell, like, when the interns come in, I'm like, dude, you just came to the best education you can ever possibly have. All you need to do is keep your mouth shut and just listen and observe. Use your eyes, use your ears, take it all in, because that's one of the things that I've always done. And I don't, you know, obviously mechanical engineer. I have not gone to Davis. I don't have my degree in winemaking, but I've seen a lot. And it's great to interact with all the different winemakers. It's also, you know, winemakers, clients can come to us. You know, my production manager, Luke, he's a wealth of knowledge. Made wine in, you know, Michigan and upstate New York, like all these other crazy places that's really hard to make wine because of the growing climate and everything else. So it's this great collective of knowledge, and it really shines through, because sometimes we do get in a jam, you know, and we need to know when to reach into the toolbox or when to lean on one of our friends and say, hey, I need help. Like, something's weird here. So, because we can all solve it. We just, you know.
Yep, I always say during harvest, no one is as smart as all of us.
Yeah, totally, right.
All right, you guys, and with that, we are at almost an hour, so I'm sorry I kept everybody past the 45-minute mark. Again, thank you for sharing your evening with me. I raise your glasses to everybody. Stay healthy, stay well, enjoy your cellar at home, be socially distanced, and we'll see you next time. Thank you again, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.